director of the Massachusetts Law Office, on the line. She's going to tell everyone about how to make our work more efficient and how to use Evernote for your law practice. So Heidi, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn all about Evernote today. So to start things off, I'm going to give everyone a little bio about Heidi. Heidi Alexander is the director of the Massachusetts Law Office Management Assistance Program, where she advises lawyers on practice management matters, providing guidance in implementing law, office technologies, and helps lawyers develop healthy and substantial practices. She frequently makes presentations to the legal community and contributes to the publications on law, practice, management, and technology. And she is also the author of Evernote as a law practice tool and ABA Law Practice Division publication, and serves on the ABA's TECHSHOW Planning Board. In 2017, Heidi was appointed to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court's Standing Advisory Committee on Professionalism. That's an awesome mouthful there. So Heidi, that's quite an impressive resume. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the industry.
Sure, I'm happy to. So, well, I'm an attorney by training. So I, went through law school, did all that. Worked at a small firm, so I practiced for a while, did employment law and litigation, and realized I was much more interested in the management side of the firm. So I left and started my own consulting practice, and that's what led me to my current work, which I love because I get to help. Basically, I get to help attorneys figure out how to run their practices, and most of the attorneys I've come across, they'd rather be focused on the substantive aspects of the law rather than having to run the business. And so that's what I help people with, and it's a lot of fun. We talk a lot about marketing, talk a lot about implementing technology, about how the law practice has changed over time and how practitioners can keep up with it. So what I do is a lot of fun, and I love helping the people I do. And I get to do presentations like this, which I find are lots of fun. So I'm looking forward to this.
Very cool, very cool. So before we get started, obviously this webinar is brought to you by PracticePanther. A quick little note about PracticePanther is a state-of-the-art all-in-one case management and billing solution that makes running a law practice simple and efficient. Thousands of solo practitioners, virtual, small, and mid-sized firms worldwide use PracticePanther to save time, work faster, and grow their firms. So get world-class support by phone, email, or live chat. Try it as long as you want for your first 3 clients in 3 cases, and there's no credit card needed. All right, so Heidi, so next, what's on our agenda today?
Is that a question?
That is.
All right.
What will we cover today?
All right. Well, we're going to try to cover a lot, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about Evernote. Evernote's a tool that I love. It's a tool that I think is very complementary to case management programs, and so I'm going to talk about what lawyers can get out of Evernote. We're going to talk a little bit about how to use it. We're going to talk about why you should use it, and then I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you to use it like a power user, so you can actually implement it in your practice.
Sounds amazing. Let's get started.
All right, so I suspect that a lot of you on this webinar can identify with this guy. Solo, and especially solo and small firm practitioners, are constantly bombarded from basically every direction. You have a ton of competing demands. You have competing demands from clients, from colleagues, from staff, family, and of course there's the actual work that you need to get done. And it's tough, right? It's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if you can't get everything under control is basically your office looks like this, and I see this as very problematic. You have a lot of paper, it's disorganized, you've got a desktop that looks like this, you've got things all over the place, and if you know, basically this is a malpractice claim waiting to happen, and so we want to figure out how to take care of that. So if you go on to the next slide there, I've got a great so this is actually a quote from a study from the Princeton Neuroscience Institute, and the study was all about what happens when you're working in an environment that's cluttered, that's disorganized. And what they found is that when your environment is cluttered, it's chaotic and it restricts your ability to focus. And this is true of physical and virtual environments. And what happens is when you've got all this stuff going on, it draws your attention away from what you really need to be focused on, and it's bombarding you with this external stimuli, and then it all becomes a source of stress, and it really creates the appearance that your work is never done. So if you just have all this stuff around you, again, whether it's physical, whether it's virtual, it's like you're never done. You're always working. And of course we're always working, but you need to feel like you've accomplished something. And so we're going to talk about some strategies and basically why Evernote, how Evernote can help with that.
Awesome.
So here's the other problem. we've got clutter all around us. I see so many attorneys' offices again that are, they've got paper all over the place, it's disorganized. And by the way, I actually audit attorneys who have been disciplined, and by and large, that's what their office looks like. So don't let your office get that way. But the other side of this is that our mind is cluttered. We have a lot of stuff going on in our mind at all times, as you can see by this statistic. The average person has 70,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot. It's 49 per minute. That's a lot of thoughts. So, and there's also research out there that shows that we spend, I think it's actually more than half of our day thinking about something other than what we are currently doing. So what we need a way to take all that stuff in our head and get it out of our head so that we can focus in on whatever it is we need to be doing, like drafting that motion or handling that client matter. I mean, whatever it is, you want to be able to take all that brain power and focus it in on that one thing rather than think about everything else that we need to do. And so that's how we get to Evernote, because Evernote is something that can help you with this.
That's awesome. Amazing.
All right. So what's Evernote? So let's start talking about Evernote. So Evernote's a note-taking program. It's basically what I call a memory aid. It's a memory aid, and it's an organizational tool for pretty much all of your data. It allows you to collect all that data, so basically take all the stuff from your head, all the stuff around you, all that stuff that you were throwing on your desktop, and it serves as this central repository. Take all that information, collect it into one space, an organized space, and we're going to talk about how to organize it. And that way you free up the space in your mind so you can concentrate on what you need to be doing. So you can use it to take notes, you can use it to save articles, you can use it to annotate, you can use it to collaborate. Your data is all stored in the cloud, which means it's syncing up to all your devices. You can access it whenever you need it. And so this is a tool that I find that when people really start to use it, they use it every day in their practice. I mean, they are using it regularly. And once I started really using this tool, and then of course I wrote a book on it, so I used it even more, but I'm not sure what I would do without it. I mean, I really use it. I use it pretty much for everything. I mean, this morning I was at a couple of meetings, and all my notes from those meetings, it went right into Evernote. So it really can become a tool for, for storing a lot of the data that you use on a daily basis.
It's a very cool tool. Very cool.
And of course, there's, Evernote is not the only note-taking program of its kind out there. There are many other programs available. These are pretty much the big four. OneNote, Google has a product, and then there's Apple Notes, which has gotten a lot better over time. So they're all just a little bit different, but they're all good products. So just a couple of, I just want to talk just a little bit about the differences between some of these products. So we have Google Keep and Apple Notes, and they're both free products. Neither of these products are as robust as a OneNote or Evernote, but it does allow you to save some content. It's again a place where you could kind of do that brain dump, leave all that stuff in there. So it can do some things. So if you want to experiment with it, try it out. I mean, everyone who has a Mac or Apple device, you've got Apple Notes. If you've got a Google account, then you've got Google Keep. So it's a great way to just start experimenting with these tools.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So then
Evernote and OneNote.
Yeah. So then we have Evernote and OneNote, and Evernote and OneNote are similar, and they do, again, they're going to be more robust than Google Keep and Apple Notes, but they're very similar tools. I mean, for the most part, they have pretty much the same functionality. OneNote, if you have a Microsoft account or you use a Microsoft 360, that's going to integrate with all of those tools. Evernote integrates with a bunch of different products as well, and so one is not necessarily better than the other. They're just very different products. Evernote is really based very heavily on its search functionality, whereas OneNote is really based off of folders and notebooks and that sort of hierarchy. So they're just different products.
Okay. And so the cost here, let's see where they are.
Yeah. So Evernote, Evernote has changed over the years. They've changed their pricing structure a couple of times, but I always tell people to start with the basic version, which gives you a lot. I mean, it gives you most of the features, but what happens is that when you start using Evernote a lot, you're going to run up against certain limits, so certain upload limits, and because everything you do in Evernote is going to bump up against that upload limit. And so once you start using it a lot, you're going to end up finding yourself you need more upload limits, and so you need that raised, and that's when you need to move to the Plus or the Premium. As you can see, I mean, this is not a huge cost, but I always recommend that people start with the basic version. I also recommend that folks start off with the desktop version because it'll help you become familiar with all the different features, and once you become familiar with the features, then you can move to the mobile version. But it does have a web version as well, which you can use through your web browser, and that's really for distraction-free note-taking. So it's much more streamlined than the desktop version. Evernote's also making apps for wearables, like Apple Watch. Doesn't have the full functionality, but you can receive notifications, you can create notes, and you can search notes.
Sounds amazing. It's like a filing cabinet of sorts for for life, wherever you go. I guess,
exactly.
Huh?
Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
Yep.
Let's look into Evernote then here.
All right, so I want to just let's jump right through this into the workspace here. Just a quick note before I begin: the screenshots here are from the Mac desktop version, but just so you know, the Mac and Windows desktop version are very similar, and so I think that you'll be able to figure it out no matter what. But again, the desktop version is much more robust, so I would say start there. And so this is basically what your workspace looks like when you open up Evernote on your computer. So it shows you your content, and it gives you access to Evernote tools. So you can create notes, you can select notebooks, you can format, formatting just like you would do in a Word document. You've got a sidebar over on the left-hand side, which is all customizable. You can have a list of your notes, a list of notebooks. There's shortcuts. So this is basically this is your workspace. And so again, this is why I recommend getting to know the desktop, because you can get to know all the different features in here.
Cool.
So this is an example of a customized workspace, and the way I've set this up is, this is a way attorneys can use Evernote. So you'll see some of the, and we'll go through this specifically, but you can see some of the ways in which attorneys can use Evernote. But you'll see here on the left-hand side a list of notebooks, and basically you can go to the application menu, and you can customize it and decide what you'd like to see. You can have access to frequently used notebooks, a list of notebooks for quick access, a list of tags, and there's all different sorts of views. So if you'd rather view things in list form, or you'd rather view it visually, like different cards set up, you can do it that way. So there's a number of different customization options.
Cool. Looks very clean, very user-friendly and easy.
Yeah, definitely. So this is basically the heart of Evernote. Notes. And your notes can contain text, they can contain audio, they can contain images, they can contain documents, they can contain emails, they can contain web content. You give it a title, you give it some body text, and you can format it and style it. So those are your notes. And then we've got tags, and what tags do is they assign basically a further level of organization. So let me just back up a moment. All of your notes live in notebooks, and the notes, when you want to find a note, you can go to the notebook, or you can do a search. And just to make this clear, the notebooks only allow you to have basically one level of notes. So you can have a bunch of notebooks, and you can have a bunch of notes within that notebook, but you can't have notebooks within notebooks within notebooks within notebooks. That's not the way that Evernote works. So that's something to understand. It doesn't exactly work like your electronic filing system. You really do have to start to rely on tags and the search functionality in order to really assign different levels of organization to your notes. So this is an example of using tags with a note. So I could use this for saving some case law. Now I save it, I give it some tags, so I give it, let's say I give it the name of the court, I give it maybe a proposition or the topic, and then I might throw it in my employment discrimination notebook, because I know that's where all of my case law is that pertains to employment discrimination. But of course there's so many different categories of employment discrimination and so many different factors, and so when I use those tags, I can then search very easily. I can say, hey, I need a SCOTUS case that's on sex discrimination. I can pull up those tags, and it's going to pull up all that case law that I have saved in there. So that's a really useful feature.
Very cool program.
I agree. So this is oh, that's okay. Um,
There you
so
go.
yeah, so search. So this is the search functionality, and the I talked a little bit about search functionality. You know, searching for those tags, but search is really a defining function of Evernote. It's really powerful, and you can search within the contents of notes. You can search tags. You can search within attachments, you can search within images, within PDFs, you can even search within handwritten notes. So that's really cool because let's say you draft a note, you've got a note that you're taking, you're in a meeting and you're scribbling some notes. You could actually take a picture, and I'm gonna show this in a couple of slides, but you can actually take a picture of your notes and it can save it right to Evernote. And then when I search for a some text within that note, my handwritten note, Evernote should be able to find it. Now, if you have the worst handwriting in the world, maybe not. But if your handwriting is somewhat decent, then yeah, Evernote should be able to find it, which is really great. So it can find that text within notes, and it also can find text within PDFs. So what Evernote does is it has built-in OCR, optical character recognition. And so what it does is it scans those PDFs and it converts the text into searchable text. And so if you want to search for something within a PDF, you'll be able to find that within the system. And there's lots of different ways to search. I mean, you can search very broadly within your entire Evernote space, or you could search by notebook or by tag or within a certain note. You can also, for Mac users, there's actually a really cool feature called descriptive search, and you can do something like write notes created yesterday, and it's going to find all those notes that you created yesterday. Or maybe you want to say any reminders due next month, and it'll find all the reminders that you set for being due next month. So it's got some neat features when it comes to search, and you can really you can be pretty sophisticated with this if you want, but even just learning the basics, it's pretty easy to use.
Wow, that is crazy. So it can actually like read your handwritten notes. That's something else. Wow.
Yes, I
Fantastic.
can. So I want to talk, obviously this is a webinar for attorneys, and what I do is I help attorneys. So I'm always thinking about how these products can benefit attorneys. And I know lots of attorneys who use Evernote, and actually in my book I did a bunch of case studies. So I asked a bunch of attorneys, how do you use Evernote, and tell the readers how you are using it. And so I've talked to a lot of people about how they use Evernote, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the ways in which I think you can use Evernote and ways in which a lot of attorneys are using Evernote.
Sounds amazing. Here we go.
All right, so the first is saving and storing content. So we can move on to the next slide. There's lots of different ways in which we can save and store content. So we can save and store content using text. We can save text and we can save audio. So we can go into our note and we can start a new note, and we can write. We can write using our keyboard. We can actually speak audio, so we could save an audio file into there, and again we can also handwrite notes. So we can use that to, so that's the basic way of saving and storing content. I think we skipped one
examples,
slide.
I guess.
Oh yeah, I think we skipped one slide. The documents. Oh,
yes.
you were there. Okay, sorry about that. So
Okay.
documents and audio. So we can save documents and audio. So I mentioned audio, but you can also save documents to Evernote. So what I can do is I could save a Word document in here, or I could save a PowerPoint document in here, or most different types of word processing documents or PDFs or images, whatnot. what is really, really cool about this product, I mean, this is what where I think Evernote sets itself apart and makes itself really useful, is if you drop a Word file in there. And so if I have a draft of something and I drop it into that note, and I later on I go into the note and I pull up the Word document. And so I open the Word document from the note, and it opens up in my Microsoft Word, and I start typing in that document, and I just hit save. It's going to save it right back to that note, because Evernote saves a local copy to your hard drive. So what happens is your note is then saved to your hard drive, and then it's synced up to the cloud. So what that means is that you can basically work on Word documents, on PowerPoints, anything that you could, or even PDFs, you can work on those within Evernote. You don't have to be dragging and dropping and uploading and downloading and whatnot. You can do it all within Evernote. So that to me is a very, very exciting feature. All right, now you can move on.
There we go.
All right, so
Okay.
we got, yeah, so this is the, so I was talking a little bit about this, you know, saving your handwritten notes. This is really easy to use. I mean, Evernote has a mobile app, and you open up the mobile app and you create a new note, and then you can click on the camera within the note. And so I can take this, and you'll see here, I took some notes, and all I did was snapped a photo of it, and it's gonna then save my notes like this. And then when I go to search and I search my notes, let's say, it's gonna pull that up. It will pull up that note, so I know, so I can find it easily.
That is so crazy. Computers are gonna take over the world, man.
Yes, absolutely. So here's another great way that you can use Evernote for saving business cards. I mean, I always find that, you know, I go to a ton of events. Attorneys do a lot of networking. So we go to events and we collect all these business cards. And what do we do with the business cards? Well, you know, either we trash them or they sit on our desk forever, right? And we don't do anything with them. Maybe we follow up, maybe we don't. Okay. So let's try to reduce that clutter, okay? And what you can do is either at the event or after the event, just take out your Evernote app. You're going to open up that note, create a new note, snap the photo. Evernote is automatically going to recognize that this is a business card. And what you see here is it's extracting all the information on the business card, and it's putting it into, it's creating a contact note. And so what this is going to do is, and you'll see here it says saving as business card. It should do this automatically. And you'll see here, I did not make any changes, by the way, to this. I mean, you may think that, oh, I made some changes. I set this up. I didn't. When I did this, this is all the information that was captured from my business card. It's pretty much completely accurate. So I think actually it's missing a comma between my last name and ESQ. But other than that, it's perfect. So what happens is I can save this, and it's going to create a note in a business card notebook, okay, for this contact. What it can also do is it can also save this to your phone contacts. Okay, so if you sync with iCloud or whatever it is, whatever you're syncing with, you can actually save it to your contacts. The other thing you can set it up to do is to automatically request a connection via LinkedIn. So that it'll take this information from whoever you've met, and it will then link up to LinkedIn, and it will then request that LinkedIn connection. So that's a really great feature, and I know tons of attorneys that use it. I mean, almost solely for this purpose.
That sounds fantastic. Wow. So I have a question from Howard. Is it okay
Mm-hmm.
if I ask a question? He
Of
says that he
course.
downloaded a free version of Evernote. Cool. And he says that it's not looking quite like our presentation today. Can you address that, you think?
Downloaded a free version of Evernote. So It should. I mean, the difference may be if you are using a PC versus a Mac. So like I said, the screenshots that I have are from the Mac. So it, in terms of like the font and stuff like that, I mean, it may look slightly different. It may look different if you are on a touch device as well. So if you're on a touch device, you want to make sure that you're using the desktop version. So sometimes on a Surface, like you can decide whether you're going to use uh, the touch screen. It's Evernote. I think it's Evernote Touch, or the Evernote desktop. And so if you use the Evernote desktop, it should look for the most part the same. But definitely feel free to follow up with me, and I can help you out.
Sounds good. And then I have a question from Jonathan. He's asking if the business card recognition and Outlook contacts function is that available in the free version of Evernote?
Yes.
Do you know
Yes. Yep, it
that? Okay,
is.
cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
The only problem again is that if you are using this a lot, you're going to run up against those upload limits. So if you're using it to do a lot of scanning and uploading of these business cards, you're going to find yourself soon running up against the upload limits, and that's when you're going to want to move to the next level.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right. Well, moving on then.
All right, so this may be, one of the most prominent features. It's definitely one of the features that that got Evernote pretty known in the first place, and it's the web clipper. And basically, what you do is you go to your web browser, and you can actually just Google Evernote web clipper, and it's going to install an extension to your browser. And so right here I'm using Safari, but you can use it on pretty much any browser, and it will download an extension. And if you navigate to a site that you would like to then either bookmark or save later, save the article, you can then click on that extension, and it's going to save it right to Evernote. And you'll see here there's a number of different formats you can save your articles to, or the information to. You can save it as an article, which strips some of the web formatting off of it. You can save it as a simplified article, which basically strips it down to almost just text. You can save it as the full page. You can save it as a bookmark, as a screenshot. If it's a PDF, it will tell you it can save it as a PDF. And then you can choose which notebook to place it in, and add tags. And there's actually a feature in here. If you go into the options, you can set it to smart filing. And what smart filing means is when you go to save something from the internet, Evernote is actually going to predict where you would like that to be placed. So if you're doing a lot of legal research, and let's say you're using like Google Scholar, okay, and you start saving cases from Google Scholar into Evernote, what's going to happen is the next time you save a case you go to save a case into Evernote, it's going to recognize that, and it's going to say, okay, you want that to go into case law research notebook. So there's some of that sort of artificial intelligence behind that function. But this is a great feature. I think a lot of attorneys use this to clip articles for reading later, or case law for reference. So it's one of the most popular features of Evernote.
Sounds pretty awesome. Wow. I have a quick question from James. He's saying,
sure,
if can you recommend the setting? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you recommend how to set up your notebooks and your tags? Do you have a certain system that you use to do that?
So you know what? I think yeah, let me just make sure we're gonna get there. Yeah, so I do actually, we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. So yes, I do.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on.
All right, so you can also save content from email. So if you have the Plus or Premium account for Evernote, you actually get a specific, unique Evernote email address, and it's actually in your web account. And I'll just show you here where it is. And so you can use that, and you can then send emails into your Evernote account. So if there's something that you need to save from your email, you can just use your Evernote email address and send it directly into your email account. If you have a free account, you're not going to get the Evernote email address, but there's two workarounds to this, and one is if you're using Gmail, because if you use Gmail, you can actually use that web clipper that we just talked about to save emails into Evernote. So that's a good workaround. If you're using Outlook, Outlook should, once you download Evernote for your desktop, it should automatically add an add-on for Outlook. And so when you open up your Outlook, you should see an add-on at the top that allows you to save emails directly into Outlook. And if you don't see it, you may just have to go into your settings and make sure that that add-on is selected, but it should be automatically downloaded once you download Evernote to your computer.
Sounds great. I'm loving Evernote, how it's so fully integrated to other programs. Awesome.
Yes. All right, so this is just an example of how that works, so we don't really need to spend time on there, but that's that, and that's the Outlook add-on that I talked about. It should appear right up in that corner, and you can select the notebook, you can select the tag, you could add a little remark that's going to appear at the top of the note.
Cool.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about sharing content, because part of what makes Evernote so great is the ability to share and collaborate on notes. So there's a couple of different ways that I want to talk about. The first is sharing with a public note link. So you can share any content in your in Evernote with a public note link. And so I'm showing you here where you can do it. Again, like, this may differ slightly depending on the version you're using, but you can share it with a public note link. And what that means is that you use that link and you put it into a web browser, and you're going to see the Evernote note as you see here on the right. And what happens is this note is then viewed in real time. So if you make any changes then to your note, so if you make changes to this, maybe this is your template client intake form, you make any changes to this, that's going to appear in real time on the right here. And so all I'd have to do is refresh this, and I'm going to see those changes. So I use this all the time when I'm sharing or I'm submitting an article for, let's say I write an article for a law journal or something like that. I actually use this public note link, and I send it over to the person I need to submit it to, and then, if I need to make a change sort of last minute, I can do it, and all those changes are going to be reflected. So that's a way to do it. Obviously, you don't want to use this for any confidential client information, even though it's, it'd be very difficult for someone to actually figure out the unique link. I would just say it's not a good practice to share via public note link. And you'll see here on the right hand side, you can actually save this to Evernote. So if someone, let's say you share this to someone, let's say someone calls you and says, oh, hey buddy, I'm looking for a sample client intake form that I can use for my new practice. And you say, oh yeah, sure, I have one, and of course you have it in Evernote because you have everything saved in Evernote. And so you then share with your friend, and you share it with a public note link, and you share it with them, and then if they have Evernote, they can actually save it to their own Evernote here. So that's one way to do that. And I usually do that when I don't know if someone else has Evernote. If it's just some random person, I'm going to use that because that's the easiest way to basically just get them that information, and then they can use it. So the next way to share is sharing via email. And again, this may be a little bit different based on the version that you're using, but the point here is that you have the ability to share a copy of the note via email. So let's say let's say you want, you've got a note and someone asks you to just share some information with them, like, maybe this client intake form, but you only want them to see the note in the form that it is right now. You don't want them to see any changes that you later make on the note. So what you do is you email them a static copy of the note. And so that's what this is doing, is it basically just takes your note, it puts it in the body of the email. It's not an attachment or anything. It's actually in the body of your email, and then you can send that note. And then
Wow, so
there's a
easy.
third way. Yeah, it's very easy. And this is the third way. So if you're working with other people who use Evernote, you can use what's called WorkChat. And my office uses this all the time, because we have the business version of WorkChat. I'm sorry, business version of Evernote. And so we're all on Evernote, and we store everything in there. We communicate in there, we collaborate in there. And so what you can do, and you can use this with someone who, maybe another attorney who has Evernote. And so I did with this sometimes with folks who I present with. I can say, oh, okay, so here's my client intake form. Someone asked me to share it with them. And what I can do is, I know they're using Evernote. I can just hit that share button, and I can share it via WorkChat. And so WorkChat is going to then share that, the client intake form, and as you can see here, you can set permissions. So here's permission, so I could collaborate with them. Here they can edit and invite. I can change that so maybe they can only view it or whatever I would like, and then I share it with them, and then they're going to get they're going to see this in their own WorkChat in their workspace, and you can set it up so you can receive notifications for any new WorkChat. And that way they can work on it with you. Now, once you share it, basically you are both on the same note. So it's going to be synced. So anytime one person makes a change, that's going to be reflected in your own Evernote. Okay, so it's like you're working on OneNote. So those are
cool.
yeah. So those are a few ways in which you can go ahead.
I'll ask, so multiple people can work on the same note together.
That's
on
right.
OneNote.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, what it won't do is it doesn't work like Google Docs, where you can see people actually writing while you're doing it. It's not going to work like that. What it does is it actually locks the note. So when one person is working on it, it's going to lock the note, so only they can work on it. And then once you're done working on it, then someone else could work on the note, and then it's going to lock the note, and basically it's going to show that that person is working on it. Evernote does have a history feature, although I believe that this is still only available to Plus and Premium users, and possibly only Premium users, but it's got a history feature. So if for some reason you're collaborating with people and someone, I don't know, deletes the entire note, you can actually go back to a previous version and you can restore that. So it has that functionality.
Very cool. The safety nets, I like it.
Yes. All right, so I'm not going to talk that much about annotation, mainly because I just want you to know that the feature is there, but it's very basic annotation. Okay, so it's not like an Adobe Acrobat or a PDF pen or a Nuance PDF. It's very basic. So I mean, you can do a few things. You can do the basic annotations, and so you can do this. You can do this in a number of ways, but in the interest of time, let's move on to the next section so we can talk about the way in which you can set up your Evernote. And so what I find there, and this is what I based on my research and talking to attorneys, is there are really 5 common uses of Evernote, and that's firm administration, legal research, marketing, case management, and productivity. So let's talk about firm administration. So this is one way in which you could set up your Evernote. Okay, so here is a sample firm administration notebook, okay? And I'm going to explain to you why I've done what I've done here, okay? So I have firm administration, and what this is called it's called a notebook stack. So I'm basically organizing these 7 notebooks into a stack. And all the stack does is it's just a way to organize your notebooks into a group. Okay, it's not a hierarchical system, so I couldn't, let's say, put notes into the general firm administration. I have to put notes into one of these 7 notebooks. So it's just a way to organize your notebooks. So the way I have this set up here is what you'll see that I'm using is I've got a W here and I've got it in parentheses, right? I'm using some special characters. And the reason I'm doing that is I want my notebook to be sorted. I want my notebook stack to be sorted in a certain way. And so what Evernote does is, for the most part, it sorts information alphabetically and chronologically. And special characters always take precedent. Okay, so they always appear at the beginning. So what I'm doing is I want to note that this is a work notebook stack. So I put I put the W in there as a work notebook stack because I might have maybe I have personal information in Evernote too, and I want to make sure that I delineate that. So I use a W for work, and then I put it in parentheses. And the reason I put it in parentheses is because I want that notebook stack to appear at the top of any other notebooks that I might have, because that's important. And then I've organized my notebooks here. And I organized them numerically because I basically wanted to override Evernote's default sorting mechanism. So Evernote would have organized this in an alphabetical order. So all these notebooks would have been organized in alphabetical order. But to me, when I go in here and I look at my notebooks, I want Office systems and information to be up at the top. And so this is just it's just a visual thing. It's different for everyone, but it's one way of doing it. And so the reason I put together this firm administration notebook, it's basically for all those policies, all those procedures, everything that has to do with your firm's administration. And at the end, I do have a couple of slides on how you can actually encrypt the text of notes, but this is just a sample of what's in there.
Looks very organized. I'm very impressed.
And there's another in here. So this is just again another example of firm administration, right? You've got policies and procedures. Here's what you might include in that. You'll see on the right here, financial management. I'm using the date first to title these notes because I want it sorted chronologically. And this is just very typical of any sort of paperless system. You're going to hear experts say you want to use the date first, so everything is sorted chronologically. All right, so I talked a little bit about this. This is probably the #1 use that I see by attorneys, is using Evernote for legal research. And again, this is what I talked about, storing it in a legal research notebook. You could store it in just one notebook that was legal research and then use tags to identify everything, or you could do it by topic and then use tags for other issues. But we can continue on since I talked about that earlier. You can use it for marketing. Great way to use it. Great to use it for marketing. So we could use it for, to keep a list of different ideas for marketing. We could do our draft blog posts in here, or articles. We could use it for networking purposes. Project-specific things. We could also save things. Let's say I see someone's advertisement or someone's website that I really like, I could use the web clipper and I could clip it right to my marketing, one of my marketing notebooks. And that's, maybe I clip it to my ideas notebook so that I have that information in there. When it comes to marketing, I can find everything I need.
Wow, a lot of good ideas how to organize my life better. Amazing.
That's the point. Good.
Yep.
So Evernote also has a feature to set reminders. So if you want to use it to set reminders for yourself, you can use that. So you'll see here, you actually can add a date. So if you have like an article due or a motion or something like that, you do it on a certain date, you can set a reminder. And then reminders are going to appear at the top of your notes in your notebook. You can also set notifications for that as well.
Very cool.
All right, and then we have a bunch of different productivity and time management strategies here. So in terms of reading things later, I mean, no attorney, no one in general is able to read everything they come across. And so you can use Evernote as a way to store things for reading later. So you could create a notebook that's a read later notebook, and you could clip things from the web. You can email things. I didn't talk specifically about print to Evernote import folders, but there's more on that in my book. And so you can then save all that information to read it later, so you're not having to deal with it now or having to remember, oh, that's where it is, I want to come back to it. Just put it in one place. You can use checklists, and so I think you saw that on a previous slide where you can actually use checklists. Works really well for templates. So let's say you're filing a motion, you could have a checklist for what you need to do when you file a motion. So a specific type of motion, you'd have a checklist, and every time you needed to file a motion, you could then replicate that checklist and say, oh, it's a motion for this specific matter, and then go through and check everything off. And it also, if you use getting things done, by the way, GTD is a method of time management, task management method. It's a book initially written by David Allen. I would check it out if you're interested in time management, and you can actually use Evernote to do getting things done, that strategy.
That's right. Getting things done. That's a good thing.
Yes, that's right. So we can move on. This is just another example of using checklists. All right, and then finally security, because of course everyone's always talking about security. Everyone wants to know, is this going to be secure for me to use in my practice? Well, here's what I tell everyone, and it's and of course it's sort of the lawyerly answer, right? It depends. I mean, no one can tell you whether or not Evernote's safe to use. It's going to be based on a number of factors, and so it's based on what are your ethical and statutory obligations in your state, in your certain jurisdiction. What's the sensitivity of the data that you're storing in Evernote? I mean, you're storing social security numbers. You're storing what are you storing in there? Your risk tolerance, your knowledge and sophistication of the use. Are you enacting certain safeguards, etc.? So with that said, let me just tell you a little bit about what we know about Evernote's security. And so, so what's helpful here is that so we know actually PracticePanther has similar security as Evernote. It's pretty much the standard when it comes to legal cloud computing. This is the standard. So and actually Evernote just recently, so they used to not encrypt their data at rest. So when it was sitting on their servers, they previously they were not encrypting it, but they just moved to Google Cloud Platform, and now the data is encrypted. So it's encrypted at rest. It's also encrypted in transit. So so it's fairly safe. I mean, they're taking the precaution. I mean, there have been a couple there was one breach in 2013, and the hackers gained access to usernames, email addresses, encrypted passwords, but there was no evidence that any of the user account had been accessed. So as a result of that, Evernote took some action, and it informed users, and it actually implemented two-factor authentication. And I'm going to talk about two-factor authentication in just a moment. But nothing is 100% safe, but there are certain things that you can do to make sure that you keep your data safe in there, and that's the next slide. So here's a couple of things you can do, right? Strong passwords, always have strong passwords. I talk about this in every single presentation I give. You want to make sure that you're using unique passwords. So you want passwords that are different between all your different services. So if you need to, use a password manager. Lots of them out there. Set up two-step authentication. So two-step or two-factor authentication, that is a feature of Evernote, and you can use it on Google, you can use it on Dropbox. It's available in a lot of places, and basically what that allows you to do is you've got a password, and then the first time you access your data on a certain device, you have to enter a passcode that you're gonna get on your device. And so what that prevents is that if someone is across the world and they're trying to gain access to your information on a different computer, well, hopefully they're not going to have your device, and so they're not going to be able to have that PIN code as well. So they may have your password, but they're not going to have that PIN code that comes in. So that's definitely important. If you're using a mobile device, you can use a passcode lock, which locks up Evernote. And then let's just move on quickly, because I know we're running out of time here. Let's move on to text encryption, because if you're storing, so here's the deal with most services. Most services like Evernote, they will encrypt information when it's sitting on the servers and encrypt it in transit. However, what that means is that the provider owns they don't own the data, but they have the encryption code. So if there's like a rogue employee or something like that, there's the possibility they could access your information. It's unlikely, but there's the possibility. So what experts will say is, you can take an extra step to do what's called client-side encryption, and what that means is that you're encrypting it on your end, so only you have the passcode, the encryption key, to get access. And so that's what Evernote allows you to do. So if you have really sensitive information, like let's say like this, here's a social security number, a driver's license number, a credit card number, I can encrypt that text. I could encrypt as much text as I want. I give it a passphrase, and then I encrypt it, and then it's encrypted within Evernote.
Very good, very good. For security purposes, amazing. Backup.
And then there's backups. I mean, backups are hugely important, and anyone who's in the business of cloud computing knows how important they are. We find that typically when attorneys lose data, it's not because they've been hacked and someone gains access to it and steals it or something like that. It's usually because an attorney, loses their computer or something happens, or there's a disaster, their office burns down, something like that, and they don't have a backup. So Evernote does back up your data in the cloud, but I'm always a fan of redundancies. So there's two ways to back up your data. The easiest way is if you are backing up your hard drive, so your actual computer, you're going to be automatically backing up your Evernote, because as I said before, you've got a copy of your local library, your Evernote library. It's stored locally, okay? And so when you're backing your hard drive up, you're backing up that local library. So you'd be backing that up. The other thing you can do is you can manually export all of your notes, and then that way you're taking all of those notes and you're backing it up. And this is the way you do it. It's really easy to do it, and actually takes really just a couple of minutes to back everything up. But the easiest way really is to just back up your entire computer.
Okay, very cool. And I see there save attachments to a folder. So is that like the PDF, the Word doc, and all that stuff?
Yep, that's right. Yep. So
Okay.
so if you want to, so if you have a note that has some attachments, and you want to extract them from a note, you could select that note and you could hit save attachments to a folder. It's going to save it on a folder somewhere else. The other way you can do it is just go into the note and you can drag those files right onto your desktop or into a folder. So either way works.
Amazing. Very cool.
And here's a couple of resources. So Evernote has a good blog if you want to kind of keep up with some of their updates. With any tool, I mean, you're going to see things that are going to change. You know, they just changed their entire mobile interface, but you know that's sort of like such is life now in the digital age. You know, these things they change quickly, but for the most part, I mean, the number of years I've been using Evernote, it's pretty much stayed true to the core functions, and so sometimes things move around, but for the most part, it's you know the essential features are there, and then they've got a help and learning website. And this is a great tool where you can just put in what you're looking for, and you'll get the information you need. And then of course there's the book that I wrote, and I was able to get anyone who's on this webinar get you a code. So if you want the book, you can go to that website, use that code, and you get 10. They're giving you 10% off. But again, I mean, the book is really, I mean, it's meant for people who are starting off, but it's also meant for people who have been using the product, because I put a lot of advanced tips and tricks in there to get the most out of Evernote. It's got a lot of screenshots. It's got a bunch of case studies. So I wrote it to be helpful to you folks. So hopefully that is, and hopefully this webinar has been. And I think you've got my contact information at the end, but I will say, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about this, happy to talk about, time management in general, but feel free to use my email to get in contact with me, or tweet at me, whatever it is.
Sounds good, sounds good. Do you have time for a few questions? I have a few questions here.
Sure.
Can I ask you? All right.
Yeah.
All right, so. And also, guys, if you have questions, please go into the chat, the question chat dialog box, and you're more than free to ask questions now. I have a question from Graham. He's asking, will Evernote ever have a function that saves text to speech, like dictation?
Oh, good. Yeah, good question. So it doesn't right now, but I mean, if you're using, I mean, obviously there's some workarounds with that. I mean, let's say if you're on an iOS device, right, and you start a new note and you use the microphone dictation button and you dictate directly into the note, it's going to add your dictation as speech, or I'm sorry, as text. The other thing you can do is you could use something like drag and dictation and then copy it into a note. But no, it doesn't have it specifically. But I think it works well just using the dictation on your phone, or if you have, like, on the Mac computers, you can use dictation on your computer, or you can, any computer really that has a microphone. If you want to use Dragon or anything like that, you can dictate right into Evernote, but it doesn't have its own speech to text feature.
Very cool, very cool. So when you come into contact with other lawyers, what do you advise them to use? As far as Evernote versus other cloud options?
So, well, it all depends on. It all depends on the attorney's needs. What's the, I always try to figure out. All right, what are the things that that you're currently doing? How could you be more efficient with what you are doing, and then figure out which product is best. Evernote, I think, serves, as you can see, it serves a number of purposes. Again, I don't think it replaces a case management system. I think it is a good supplement to a case management system. I do talk a little bit in my book about how to use it as a case management system, but it's clunky. It's not the best way. Obviously, there are tools like PracticePanther and others that are built for that purpose. And I think this does a number of other things, but obviously there are so many tools out there. I mean, you know, I could write a book about, you know, about just about anything. You know, the one other tool that I could say is a you know, is a really great tool if you want to speed things up and be a little bit more efficient. Are any of the text expansion tools, or tools like, for example, Microsoft Quick Parts. So if you use Microsoft Office and you haven't experimented with Quick Parts, you should, because when you use Outlook and you use Microsoft Word, and let's say you're drafting the same thing over and over and over, which, you know, as attorneys we do that. We have the same responses, we have the, you know, we do the same things. It's a lot of repetitive stuff. Well, when we do that, we can just save that text as a quick part, and next time we need to use it, we just click on that quick part and it pops it right in. So those are some of the, you know, really easy tools and, you know, things that you don't have to go out and buy, that probably exist. You probably already have them, and use those as a way to start to create efficiencies in your practice.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have for today. So once again, thank you so much, Heidi, for your time and for the expertise that you shared with us today. If you have any more questions, you can please hit me up at dpuente@practicepanther.com or on Twitter @PracticePanther, or Heidi Alexander too. There's her email, heidi@masslowmap.org, or her Twitter handle @Heidi Alexander. All right, so once again, thank you so much for everybody, to everybody, sorry, for joining us today. And just so you know, this webinar was recorded, so we will email it to you shortly. And Heidi, thank you so much once again for taking the time to be here with us today.